Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. It's honestly crazy that we are closing yet another chapter in Genshin Impact, going from Natlan to Nod Cry. Heck, I still remember the first emergency food joke that I encountered and mint that I picked all the way back in 2020, while I was busy hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer due to the pandemic. I wanted to take just a bit of time to talk about the characters that we got, as well as Natlan as a whole, to reminisce a bit about the last year in Genshin Impact. And sadly, the first word that comes to mind for Natlan is hate. And not the haha I hate pineapples on pizza kind of hate, but actual full-on Reddit-fueled hate. I remember seeing posts dragging Natlan for everything from "this doesn't feel like Genshin" to well, Natlan is racist. And here's where I must confess my crimes. I liked Natlan a lot, and it's actually my second favorite nation after Fontaine, and please don't cancel me just yet because I'm saving a couple even spicier takes for later on in this video, so at least wait until then to grab those pitchforks. Tired of games with too much fan service like Genshin Impact? Well, here's a game with the most modest characters of them all, ECHOCALYPSE, the Scarlet Covenant, a 2D post-apocalyptic kimono girl RPG where wholesome adventures await. With an immersive story with the thickest of plots and hundreds of waifus you'd go as far as to hold hands with, ECHOCALYPSE delivers much more than modest gameplay. It'll pump blood straight to your head, the one you use for strategy to conquer your enemies. ECHOCALYPSE is getting its biggest update yet, running from August 17th to September 6th, and the newest character, Anna, is the best new character, dealing tons of damage to your wallet, your enemies, and she'll be available with the very innocent outfit Rasparta's Wedding, with enhanced security to protect you from vile carnal desires. And now is the perfect time to start playing because there's also a 150-day sign-in event where you can get up to 24 SSR and 6 UR characters for free, including the new witch Prinny, whose chains are there for some classic trust-building exercises. And until September 6th, there's a top-up event available for players who log in via GT Arcade accounts with up to 2,000% rebate and extra rewards such as S Elementium times 40, with random SSR Affinity gift chest times 10. Each GT Arcade account can participate once with any character on their account, and top-up tasks count all top-ups made by the player in the pack store, GT Arcade desktop, and official channels. And ECHOCALYPSE is integrating new AI-powered features, where you'll be able to bond with your waifus, power up their skills and abilities, gain trust points, and have conversations about the birds and the bees that Jesus is sure to approve of. So what are you waiting for? Smash that link from behind to try out ECHOCALYPSE, and use code IWinToLoseGaming817 to get started with a very wholesome adventure. Now, before you all tar and feather me for my opinion on a video game, I wanted to reminisce about the characters we got in Natlan and to look back on how good these characters are. Primarily from a combat perspective, since, well, that's what sweats like me like to focus on, but also from some other potential values that these characters might provide. And we'll be doing this from worst to best as we go through all 18 characters with one bonus character, so I guess that's 19 characters, if my math is correct, introduced to us from and or during Natlan. So from versions 5.0 to 5.8. Now, we are about to start with the worst characters, so if you hear keyboard smashing and glass breaking, it's probably your neighbor seeing their main getting dropped into the C tier. Either that or they're playing League of Legends, it's hard to tell. Now, I apologize in advance if your favorite character does end up low on my list, but alas, such is the nature of any opinionated and ordered list like this, and not everything can be perfectly balanced like Super Smash Bros. Brawl's meta was, where everyone was only using Meta Knight and thus it was perfectly balanced. In the bottom of C tier and being the 19th most impactful character, I hate to do this to her, but I have to say it's Kachina. Look, Kachina is fantastic as an introduction to Natlan. She is adorable with her oversized mittens, and with her diabolical turbo twirly, Kachina introduced us to Night Soul mechanics and Natlan exploration options. In this regard, she did a fine job as a free Beyblade to everyone to partake in the phlogistonization of Natlan characters. Kachina also introduced us to the power of the Scroll of the Hero of Cinder City, which is frankly, support character artifact power creep, comparatively effortlessly providing 40% bonus damage to multiple elements. In fact, she can be used to climb those annoying pillars from that one robot boss if we ever encounter it again, and she is still a solid option for climbing walls, but this is where the free Beyblade loses to the pay-to-win Beyblades, as, well, technically, pretty much every Natlan character can use the Cinder City. Now, if I were to rank her for how great of a tutorial character for Natlan she is, Kinich is fantastic, and that's why I actually feel guilty for putting her here. But alas, her actual kit doesn't do much besides enable the Cinder City. And, well, technically she enables the Archaic Petra as well, but that clunk ain't funk. Now, personally, I think there were many missed opportunities for her kit. Like, it would have been really cool for Kachina's burst to provide some grouping, which would have made a lot of sense given the way it looks. But, well, if you think about it, all the free regional 4-star characters like Colette, Lynette, now Kachina, minus the OP chef Xiangling if you want to count her, have aged poorly in terms of usage rates and all simply serve to introduce us to the region's mechanics, and that's why Kachina is here in the 19th spot. At the top of C tier in 18th place we've got Yume Mizuki, and I know I might be being a little harsh here, but my therapist says I need to speak my truth, and from therapist advice to therapist, Mizuki belongs in 18th place in my opinion. While she has a great design and a wonderful side story and a devious Baku buddy, unfortunately, when it comes to the actual value she brings to your account from a combat perspective, she's not great. She might heal your party, but not your financial trauma from pulling for her. Now, I am evaluating Mizuki as a featured 5-star character and not as the 50% chance to get slapped in the face while you're trying to pull for an actually good character. And Mizuki is, no joke, at the time of her release, the 6th Anemo Catalyst character. And just like her redundant name, Yume Mizuki served the redundant role of an on-field Anemo, taser, flyer, driver, whatever. And yeah, Hoyoverse went through a reckless Plaid arc hating on Sucrose, introducing 3 characters in Natlan, all targeting Sucrose's job. On top of that, Mizuki's team options are actually quite restrictive since she doesn't perform any basic attacks, meaning she can't be used with core taser characters like Xingqiu, Yelan, or even Beidou, and she suffers performance issues with Fischl. Now, is Mizuki really that bad? Well, again, she's basically a Sucrose side grade sold at the price of a Mavuika, Furina, or even a Citlali, and when you put it like that, it starts to sound less like a banner and more like a scam. Mizuki is a reasonable character though when it comes to float exploration, but even in that regard, she's not even that great given her inability to move vertically. Now, at least she does compress Healer and Swirler into a single character, which is nice, but Sucrose can too with the prototype Amber. And yeah, as of recording, we can see that the C tier character usage rates in Abyss are absolutely atrocious. And although I do expect Mizuki to recover a bit when Lunar Charged the Abyss swirls around, when evaluating her at the price of a premium 5-star character, I just can't in good faith put her any higher than this. However, as a standard 5-star character, I could consider moving her up a rank, but even then, that's a bit dubious. So sorry Mizuki, love you as a character, but my insurance doesn't cover this type of therapy. And we are moving on to the B tier characters who I consider to provide niche value to your account, and they can be useful. Alright, I might have forgotten to mention previously, but the C tier characters provide little value to your end game clearing potential. Anyway, the first character in my super objective tier list, and in the B tier, who happens to be in 17th place, is Dahlia. Dahlia is basically just a free-to-play friendly option for freeze teams, primarily, well, Skirk and maybe Risley. So he gives a shield and he gives a bit of attack speed and he gives some hops, and that's pretty much it. Thanks to his ease of use and simplicity and also ability to troll friends, while he's not remarkable in any way, he has a niche for free-to-plays that's reasonably serviceable and won't actively set your account back like if you actually invested into Mizuki, since, well, Dahlia was a consolation prize for Skirk pullers. I will say that his lack of continuous Hydra application is definitely a shame, as that does make him much more restrictive than he needed to be for Skirk terms specifically, but alas, if he were any better, we'd have to move him up a tier, and Hoyoverse ain't having any of that. Now in 16th place, we have another free-to-play friendly character, Lanyan. Lanyan is a really interesting character to me, and she actually got a surprising amount of hype for our 5th Anemo Catalyst user, and our third Sucrose side grade. Being completely free and an Anemo Catalyst user means that she's able to provide the Viridis and Venerer and Thrilling Tales buffs, which are obviously both fantastic free-to-play options. Not only that, but Lanyan provides a very thick shield. In fact, one of the thickest if it absorbs the correct element. And at Constellation 4, she can even provide a small 60 Elemental Mastery buff, but that's where I get to why she's this low on the list. While yes, Lanyan is a fine Sucrose side grade who provides less swirls, less damage amplification, and she provides a shield instead, that's the issue, is that she's our third Sucrose side grade and fifth Anemo Catalyst user. And in 15th, we have the bro himself, Ineffa. Ineffa is actually by far my favorite B tier character on this list, but he's got one major issue. He is, yes, no joke, the 7th Anemo Catalyst user. And I promise you that this video is not just about Anemo Catalyst users, but following in Mizuki's and Lanyan's footsteps, he is now the 5th character angling to rob Sucrose of her job as a taser driver. And what's equally insane about Ineffa's release is that he, a 4-star character, basically power creeped Mizuki for the taser driver job. So not only does he heal like Mizuki, although admittingly a pretty small amount at Constellation 0, although that healing improves significantly with his constellations, I personally think Ineffa is much better than Mizuki as an Uber driver thanks to his team building flexibility and him spamming normal attacks, thus allowing him to be used with taser staples like Xingqiu, Yelan, and Constellation 6 Fischl. He also happens to boost electrocharged and lunar charged damage to increasingly relevant reactions. Finally, something that most people don't really mention much about characters like Ineffa is his mobility during combat. Ineffa, being quite high up in the air and also quite fast, is able to dodge most enemy attacks while dealing all his damage, further improving the quality of life for his teams. This mobility, of course, translates to Ineffa severely power creeping other 4-star characters in terms of exploration. Bro has near Wanderer levels of exploration compressed into an oopsie baby when you were trying to pull for Escoffier, and frankly, Ineffa is a fantastic constellation prize for those that don't have Chasca or Wanderer. And yes, even I, a massive whale, actually have Ineffa on my main exploration team due to all these variables. Frankly, my personal bias would actually put him into the A tier, but his abysmal usage rates as well as status as our 5th Sucrose side grade makes it difficult for me to do so. Now wrapping up the Ineffa glazing and sitting proudly at the top of B tier, we've got Pyro Traveler. Finally, another Traveler variant worth inviting to the party, and they join Dendro Traveler in the actually useful club. Pyro Traveler continuously applies Pyro while being off-field and also has Night Soul energy, which makes them compatible with the Cinder City. This combination makes them very usable with many powerful Natlan teams such as Milani, Kinich, Overloaded Verissa, Chasca, and many more. Not only that, but every time you run into the obnoxious Tenebrous Papuya, Pyro Traveler serves as a solid free-to-play friendly option for dealing with one of the worst enemies in the entire game. And finally, Pyro Traveler's Constellation 6 makes them a somewhat serviceable main DPS, although let's be real, 4-star main DPS characters is kind of lacking these days, but in fact, Pyro Traveler is even used by some whales for speedrunning purposes thanks to the Cinder City and also being a sortie with the ability to equip either the Freedom Sworn or the Peak Patrol Song. Now, why isn't Pyro Traveler any higher on this list? Frankly, you could make the argument to move them up to the next tier, but in my opinion, once you see who's in the A tier and above, it makes a bit more sense for Pyro Traveler to be down here. Speaking of that, we've made it to the A tier, where these characters are generally considered good or even great for your account. And kicking things off with 13th place, we have Auroron. You'll hear me say this a lot more in this video, but as per most Natlan characters, Auroron is a fantastic user of the Cinder City. Not only that, but Auroron is effectively AoE Fischl, which makes him, well, AoE Fischl, and that's already a pretty good selling point. And his Constellation 6 even provides up to 30% attack for the active character, which just further adds value to owning him. Well, that and 6 more copies of him, who I'm sure Grandly Citlali would go crazy dealing with. Auroron has many solid team options as well, being fantastic on overloaded teams, taser teams like with New Valette, lunar charge teams, and Chasca teams. So yeah, Auroron is just a very solid 4-star character dealing reasonable damage and who is capable of providing 40% bonus damage damage to most of his teams, and having the flexibility that many other characters can only dream of. Not only all of that stuff, but he can jump a bit higher in the air. Okay, now it is at this point in the tier list where I feel like the order of the following characters can be adjusted, so do keep that in mind. But the next character I put here is Kinich. Making Naruto and Sasuke as playable characters wasn't on my bingo list, but Kinich's gameplay was a fresh spin on Genshin Impact's combat system, focusing on the underutilized burning reaction. This actually makes Kinich fantastic against the Tenebrous Papuya for obvious reasons, and that thing is, again, one of the worst enemies in the game. Kinich has aged remarkably well, being all the way back from version 5.0, but I believe his age will start to show more as we go into Nod Cry. Kinich has been a fantastic Dendro DPS that has lived up to the demands for Natlan, but my main concern is that as we go into Nod Cry, Kinich is reaching his 1-year expiration date that most non-Archon DPS characters reach in their old age. Oh yeah, and Spider-Manning around with him is a lot of fun too, so an easy A-tier placement for Kinich. Next we have Yeon-san. Now, a lot of people were hoping Yeon-san would be a 5-star character, and there was some controversy around that. Not only was she visually redesigned, she also became a 4-star character while a random cowgirl ran and robbed her of one of her stars. Now, to be clear, I actually think there are many benefits for Yeon-san to be a 4-star character, and I was fine with her being whatever rarity, but many people in the community didn't feel this way. Anyway, Yeon-san provides a substantial attack boost, sporting Cinder City compatibility, and spending a lot of Night Soul points, thus making Yeon-san a fantastic option for many powerful Natlan DPS characters such as Mavuika, Varissa, Chasca, and Kinich. Needless to say, she works well with a lot of the older attack scaling DPS characters as well. Alright, and she heals a tiny bit too. Although her healing is quite paltry, the healing does allow her to activate the Symphonist of Sense. Now, one of the reasons why she isn't higher on this list is because I actually feel like for most of her teams there are alternatives that come close to what she can provide. Namely, for example, like Bennett, but not always Bennett, because of other co-conspirators such as Shilanin, and these days you typically don't need 2 Bennetts as much as you might have needed back in the day. Anyway, Yeon-san also provides some quality of life for exploration, which is nice, albeit her jogging pace is deceptively not as fast as you'd expect. And finally, Yeon-san gains a lot from her constellations, so as you get dupes for her, she'll continue to bolster your account. This next little detail was also a bit surprising to me, defying my personal expectations, but Yeon-san isn't really used that much in speedrunning at whale levels of investment, and that actually did factor in a tiny bit for me for putting her here on this list where she is. Up next we have Chasca, and Chasca gave the entire community whiplash when she was released, riding on a futuristic flying gun mount and shifting the design and tone of Genshin Impact. We were used to Fontaine's clunky robots being the most futuristic thing in Tivat, only to be surprised by, well, Chasca. Chasca didn't just innovate on her technological expectations, she was also very innovative with her gameplay. She loads bullets based on her teammates' elements, and despite being an animo character, actually deals very little animo damage. Her flexibility is her greatest strength, allowing her to be run with so many different characters and elements, albeit a few options tend to outshine the rest. Now, due to her flexibility as well as compatibility with things like even Ineffa Lunar Charged, I think Chasca has some promise to survive a bit longer in Nod Cry than some other DPS characters, like take Kinich as an example. Not only that, but she actually does a great amount of damage with a pretty decent amount of quality of life as well, like a decent amount of interrupt resistance, so suck on that, Wanderer. And she has easy auto aim, she has high mobility, and thus the ability to evade enemy attacks. All of these variables make Chasca a fantastic character for almost anyone's account. And oh right, she flies on a giant gun, which besides its firepower, is pretty awesome and is a surefire way to shoot her to her destination. Then we have Milani. Okay, I know I was dogging on Kinich for being an old man at this point, and Milani is actually even older. Milani was a fantastic introduction to the bright and colorful Natlan region, and her personality is contagious, bringing the party wherever she goes, and frankly setting the tone for Natlan as a whole. In terms of her combat potential though, Milani's ceiling is absurdly high, being a forward vape DPS character, and also Milani's floor is comically low, in the hands of more casual players, or without, proper investment. Granted, using her and pragmatically outputting her damage is the issue, as you'll need to work those brain cells much more than her single brain-celled counterpart Neuvillette. Milani's swimming capabilities are also second to none, traversing vast swaths of water effortlessly and even being quite solid for exploration on the ground as well. It's honestly hard for me to say any more negative things about Milani, although I will say that I am also concerned about her longevity given Columbina's likely Hydro element. Still, a very powerful character who easily deserves her placement in the A tier. Now we've reached who I would argue is the second most controversial character in the game, Verissa. Coming out of nowhere like a bull in a china shop, Verissa wrecked our expectations of the 5-star Yansan. And this will be my second hot take of this video. I simply adore Verissa. She's tropey, she's clumsy, she's ridiculous, and most importantly, she's just a ton of fun to use. Her dealing a crap ton of damage while running around like Sonic the Hedgehog helps a lot in that regard. And she's also easily one of the best DPS characters in the game. Albeit, let's be honest, Lunar Charged is coming for her job. Personally, I really appreciate how Hoyoverse was willing to finally explore different body types and models from the standard 5 body types, and perhaps we'll finally get her really buff husbando in the future. But they gave Verissa a very distinct character model and even custom running physics. Verissa, while she is terrible at turning, marks a positive turning point for Genshin Impact in more ways than one, such as providing long-needed character model innovation, and even providing some gameplay innovation with a more complicated Zenless Zone Zero like Kit. Alright, and she's fast as fudge and pretty darn great for exploration as well, making her an easy A tier placement in my book. And up next we have our final member of the A tier, Ineffa. Ineffa is just a very solid all-rounder in version 5.8, and I fully expect her to improve and have additional team options in version 6.0 and beyond. Now, one important variable when it comes to character strength isn't just how well they sheet their DPS, but also how strong they feel for how long they feel strong. And introducing an all-new mechanic in Lunar Charged, Ineffa foreshadows a lot of what is to come, and her providing a solid shield and solid sub-DPS is just the cherry on top. Not only that, but for at least 6 weeks, and likely much longer than that given how endgame content is designed in Genshin Impact, Ineffa will likely find a place in the meta for quite a long time, due to endgame gameplay modes and enemies being designed around newer characters. While I certainly wouldn't say she's like more powerful than Verissa or whatever, because of her potential in the future, I feel quite comfortable putting Ineffa here at the top of the A tier. So we finally made it to the tippiest top of the Natlan iceberg, the S tier. And these characters are simply some of the best characters in the game, period. With the first two peas in a pod that I wanted to talk about being Skirk and Escoffier, who honestly, without each other, could justifiably be put in the A tier. But together, they easily belong in the S tier. Escoffier, though, does have the better case to be made to be placed in the S tier without Skirk, though, so keep that in mind. And, well, what's there to say about Escoffier? Just slap her in any cool team and she provides solid sub-DPS, incredible full team healing, making her perfect with Furina, and 55% cryo and hydro resistance shred. Yeah, this is an insane amount of value, albeit only for freeze teams. While Ayaka and Risley, though, are pretty decent teammates for Escoffier, let's be real, they can't compare to the second best DPS in the game, Skirk, who, well, Skirk just deals a ton of raw cryo damage, and frankly, there's not much else to say about Skirk. So yeah, these two currently belong at the top of DPS charts, particularly when you have both of them, and thus I feel like, while they're together, at least they belong in the S tier. Now the next three characters I feel like can also be lumped together, but I'll talk about each one individually, starting with Citlali. Citlali is an incredible melt support and an okay hydro damage support, with, ironically, a kit that doesn't actually do that much, but somehow ends up doing oh so much. Simply due to her weapon choice and being Natlanese, gives her the ultimate free-to-play friendly combo of the Thrilling Tales plus Cinder City, which already provides 40% bonus damage and 48% attack. Her actual kit though just provides 20% hydro and pyro resistance shred with a medium durability shield and regular cryo application. Somehow though, this all combines to make her the most broken, overpowered forward melt enabler for all the pyro DPS characters in the game, and especially for Mavuika. Granted, she was wonderfully designed to elevate older pyro DPS characters like Arlecchino, Gao Ming, even Hu Tao, or God forbid Diluc or something. So yeah, it's hard to understate how fantastic Citlali is, especially if you have Mavuika. And that's without even talking about her ability to support Hydro DPS characters and even some Freeze DPS teams as well. And we don't even need to talk about her constellations, which make her completely broken. Next, we have Shilinin, who I personally value just a bit more than Citlali due to how insanely universal she is, providing AoE persistent resistance shred across multiple waves to both Petch elements and Geo, as well as providing healing, as well as the flexibility to use many different artifact sets, such as the Cinder City, Archaic Petra, or get this, even the Instructor set. Shilinin's flexibility is what makes her so ridiculously great. While she might not provide the largest damage buffs, at least at Constellation 0, because she fits in so many different teams, she's basically the Kazuha of her generation. Oh right, and she fills up Mavuika harder and faster than Mavuika can bug her about fixing her bike, thus making the ultimate wheelchair team with Mavuika, who is the second best character on this list. And I have one last hot take for this video. Mavuika is my favorite character from Natlan. Yes, super original, I know, the Pyro Archon is your favorite character, what? Look, I just like motorcycles. Wario is my favorite Nintendo character, Luvencia my favorite from Brown Dust 2, and Eugene was my main in Guardian Tales. Now, speaking of Eugene, does Mavuika resemble Eugene? Maybe just a bit. But is Mavuika a Mary Sue type of character in the story? Yeah, personally I think so. Is her outfit a bit funny looking for the Pyro Archon? Absolutely. But something about riding this ridiculously cool looking motorcycle around Teyvat just scratches all the right itches from a gameplay perspective, and despite her being the Zipper Archon, she ended up being my favorite character from Natlan. And I really like how she's actually kind of annoying with the way that she treats Shilinin, always breaking her bike and needing Shilinin to fix it. Now, we don't even need to talk about how much damage she does because, yeah, she hits harder than an isekai truck. Now, needless to say, Mavuika power creeped the game in terms of DPS output and is the new baseline for DPS characters moving forward. With her massive forward melts thanks to Citlali, Mavuika just does too much damage. Not only that, but she is a fantastic support / sub DPS character as well, thanks to her regular intervals of pyro application. Look, I get it. It was a bit weird and wacky to see her motorcycle in Teyvat, and sometimes I go to Mondstadt just to flex my futuristic dragon motorcycle bike while they're still supposedly riding horses. But look, I'm going to blame Chasca for this because she set the stage for this comical leap in technology with her giant flying dragon gun or something. But if you actually know the lore, which I gotta be honest, I don't know that much about the lore, Mavuika's motorcycle isn't as absurd as you might expect, since dragon technology, yada yada, aliens and spaceships galore. Anyway, that was my final hot take of this video, with Mavuika being my personal favorite character and also the second best character in Natlan. And that leads us to the true Pyro Archon, the best character to be revealed in version 5.8, the final Natlanese to rule them all, Bennett. Very minor spoilers ahead, so I'm giving you 5 seconds to skip to the next section in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But yeah, people were theorizing Bennett was from Natlan, and bam, those people were correct. Bennett is broken, and he's still basically the best character for so many teams, like even Mavuika, and heck, even Lunar Charge scales off of attack, so he might even be reasonably relevant in the future as well. Now, with some story revelations of 5.8 and his determination to become the best adventurer in Teyvat, I can only imagine how broken Bennett will be in the future. Or heck, maybe they should just buff him and give him some Night Soul mechanics since it was revealed that he's from Natlan. So yeah, that was my full list and ranking for all the characters introduced to us in Natlan. And it's honestly crazy to me how fast time flies and how we've reached the end of this Flintstones nation in Genshin Impact. Natlan's initial colorful atmosphere, funny dinosaurs, all combined with futuristic technology were jarring at first, but in my opinion, have become an integral part of Genshin Impact's identity. Frankly, I'm actually really happy with the way it turned out, and I will actually miss the Year of the Dinosaurs as we embark on our journey to Nodcry next. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my personal rankings for these characters. Let me know if you enjoyed Natlan or if you think it was the worst thing since cottage cheese. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.